Hi there, I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I offer this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit, and for the soul. And it's titled, The Lost and Found Came Knocking at the Door, Looking for a Better Way. There are many and varied people that knock at my door, and they do so for a variety of reasons, all kinds. There's been several knocks at the door this week. People usually come unannounced, to be fair. Some seem to have lost something. Others, though, appear to have found something and they want to deliver, I guess. Now, last Sunday, after saying goodbye to folks at the end of the morning service, I noticed a water bottle and a mobile phone on a seat at the back of the chapel. Well, actually, it was Nigel who was kind of helping out who spotted it. Now, I quickly realised it belonged to Joe, and Joe's a young man who regularly attends services at Dunham Road. And I kind of understood why he'd left his phone and his water bottle behind. I've been speaking to him quite a lot in the last couple of weeks as he's been preparing the eulogy for his grandmother's funeral. Now, I knew I couldn't contact him because obviously he didn't have his phone. So I took the items home and took Molly for a walk and then went back home myself and settled down to watch, just to relax, I guess. I emailed him, so hopefully if he had a computer at home, maybe he'd look at it there. But I knew I couldn't contact him, really. Anyway, a couple of hours later, there was a knock on my door, and there was Joe. He'd realised what he'd done. It'd taken him a little bit of time, actually, to realise what he'd done, because he's actually not one of those young people who spend their whole life on their phone. Which is kind of cool, isn't it? Anyway, we talked for a while. We talked about grief and how the human mind can be like Swiss cheese when they're grieving. Memory of simple things just goes out of the window. You feel utterly lost and often lose things. I remember once leaving my wallet in the post office and glasses in Tesco's, and another time after the service, I took an extra service in Style one Sunday afternoon, and after the service, I couldn't find my car keys. I was in a great spirit, and then it lifted me up from a grief that I was going through the work that day, and then it seemed to be all ruined by the losing my blooming car keys. And I searched everywhere. I slowly followed the path all the way back up the pathway up to the main road from the chapel, while beating myself up for my stupidity. When I got to the car, I approached the door, and there were my keys in the car door. At least I'd locked the door anyway, so I unlocked it. But I didn't take the keys out, did I? What a foolish man. I shared about other occasions where I had absent-mindedly done things or lost things. Time I thought I'd lost my car, actually. But I hadn't lost my car. I'd parked it elsewhere. I remember the old joke I was told that the trouble isn't when you lose your car. The real trouble is when you forget you've got a car at all. At least my mind hadn't gone that bad. There have been occasions in my life, though, when I thought I had lost my mind. And it's all often been in times of grief. It's a very common experience for human beings. So many people share similar experiences as me when grieving. We talk about it in the grief group all the time. We feel lost. We all feel lost to some degree. And in some ways, when you're grieving, you kind of are lost. Life seems unfamiliar. So, of course, you're bound to feel lost. And after going through the journey through the valley of the shadow, which is grief, you're never quite the same again. So you do come to a new way, I guess. You don't go back the way you came. Just before this morning, before I recorded this, actually, a friend told me about their week, and the first thing they said that she lost her house keys, and she had to go to her brother's to get the spare set. So fortunately, her brother lives in Manchester, not where she comes from in deepest, darkest Wales, apparently. Anyway, she got the keys off her brother and then trundled off home. And when she got home, guess where the keys were? Yes, in the front door where she'd left them. Thankfully, no one had noticed. It happens to all of us, I reckon. It really does. And it's about the key. Life is so much about the key to things, isn't it? What I found is that the key to getting through times of grief and loss is to keep on turning, gently turning, faithfully to life. To not hide away, even though you feel like it for too long. To not hibernate. To take care of the basics. And to lean onto the folk around you. And of course, to lean on to your God, however you understand God. That's what sustains me and so many people I know in the storm of life. In time, you will come through the loss and the feeling and the sense of being lost and come to a new world, find a new way, a better way. You don't go back the old way. Greater meaning and understanding often comes as we walk faithfully through the valley of the shadow of death. It changes you. Loss changes you. It's changed me throughout my life. Living spiritually alive, of course, is not about transcending life. It's about being transformed, transformation, formation, reformation in this life. And the key is to keep a little faith, to keep on turning. But it's just as vital to remember that we do not journey alone, even though grief can make you feel so alone at times. For we all get caught up in the storms of life. And that's why it's so vital to remember we don't sail this ship alone. We travel in the ship of love, and we travel together, and we need to do so. We need to remember that. Humour helps too. We had a good laugh this morning about losing keys. I've did it all week. Sometimes you've just got to laugh at your own humanity, your own absurdity. Yeah, I was reminded again this week about that lovely bit of humorous wisdom I heard so many years ago. Don't worry if you lose your car. That isn't the problem. You're in trouble only when you forget that you've got a car. Yeah, it helped me when about the old car keys business at the time. Now, on Wednesday I began writing this, and there was a lovely moment on Wednesday afternoon as I was typing away. In fact, just before I typed these exact words that I'm sharing with you now, a few days later. And it was a beautiful reminder of how lovely human beings can be. How lovely they are most of the time, most of them. There was another knock at my door, which Molly went mad at, of course, being a lovely little dog. And it was actually one of my neighbours, Lucy, and her daughter actually has a dog called Molly. Also, a little bit older than mine, but only a few months. I know the family quite well from out and about. They're often in Cafe Nero and walking in and out of town, and we talk often. Anyway, that morning I'd walked into Altrincham with Lucy, and she was on it. She had a big bag full of stuff. She was going to a charity shop with a few things to give away. But she told me she was concerned that they wouldn't take the things because she'd been to 4 charity shops the week before with things and they'd all been refused. They said they weren't taking things anymore. Well, that's how she remembered it. She's a person with a deep social conscience. She was concerned about distributing unwanted things to those who really need them. So she went off trying again. Anyway, an hour or so later, there she was, knocking on my door. And she'd come to tell me that they were taking things and that they had this method of distribution, even if that particular shop couldn't take things. They had a system in place, and she really wanted to tell me about this. I was so deeply touched that she'd remembered the conversation that we'd had, and that and the need for her to tell me that things were okay. It's so vital in life just to remember how ruddy lovely folk can be. Folk are, most of the time, most folk. So vital in life. Vital in my life, anyway. Earlier, between the two conversations with Lucy, I'd had another conversation with a lost soul who wanders around Altrincham every day, who I often speak to, who loves to give Molly little dog biscuits, gets a little dog therapy, she calls it. As we spoke, she was very caught up in worry about the world. She spends most of her day wandering around lost and just struggling to get through the day, actually. And we bump into each other most days. And I know it lifts her spirits just a little tiny bit to give Molly those little biscuits. It's important to remember these things, how much we all need each other, how much we need such things. And it allows us to interact and just have those little conversations. And I offer a little encouragement, I suppose. The interaction gives us some love, some life. How much we need one another. How much we need love. So much lost and so much found, so many people lost, so many people losing things that are so important to their hearts. I received an email from a person this week. They'd lost something dear to them. It's someone I don't know, but they'd lost something dear to them, something vital actually to their life, to their well-being. The email read, "Hi there. I lost my Navy Bunny soft toy yesterday morning in Stamford Square, and I'm desperately trying to find her. I really need her back. Would you be able to keep an eye out for her or able to put up her missing poster somewhere? Thank you ever so much." Now, I'm obviously not naming the person, that I'm maintaining their anonymity. But this little toy might seem like nothing to most people. But it gives the person support with their social anxiety. It helps them go out into the world. I hope they find what they have lost. It seems they need it, otherwise they will remain lost. I hope they find what they need. And we all feel lost at times. The last 18 months I've experienced some sense of being lost from time to time. And I don't just mean the loss of so many people in my life, those old friends, some dear old friends and people that I love dearly. Many congregants on both congregations, actually. So many folk I know and love. But there's also a sense of loss and bewilderment at the world at times. We do seem to be living through divisive times, and it bothers me. How often we forget seemingly, or the way that the world is portrayed anyway, the attention we give to the world, this suggestion that how we forget that we're all far more human than otherwise. That there is far more that unites us than divides us in life. That we're all formed from the same flesh and we have the same spirit within us. That we have the same needs. That we beat with the same kind of heart and we feel the same emotions, and yet we separate ourselves from one another. Why? Why do we forget our common humanity? We must never forget that, I believe. It's no matter what happens in life. For if we forget that, then we truly are lost. if we lose our humanity, if we forget that we're all formed from the same spirit, have the same flesh, the same emotions and needs, that we're all far more human than otherwise, if we forget that, then we truly are lost. And we need to be found. We need to find a better way. We need to find a better way. We need to remember what we truly are and what's truly at the heart of life. But we forget, as we forget many things. And memory is a mysterious thing. Memory loss is a serious thing. We shouldn't laugh about it either. And our minds are affected by many things that can interfere with basic brain functions, not only grief. So much fear and anxiety really affects us. And then, of course, there's the more serious, permanent kind, the many and varied forms of dementia, which we seem to be learning more and more about. So many forms of it. And I've seen it in some folk I know recently. I've watched the effects and witnessed the effects and been concerned for them. So I talk to friends about this, just to keep an eye out, without being patronising. People get so lost in the world. I also worry sometimes about my own memory, especially how I remember events in more traumatic times in my life, or periods of my life where I was living through traumatic personal experiences, I guess. And I was reminded of an old peculiar memory only recently. My brother's eldest son, Theo, has recently begun university. And they broke their foot trampolining and obviously struggling to walk around. And there was a big conversation on the family sort of sibling WhatsApp group. Some jokes obviously made, even though it's serious. But the main joke was about how lucky that Theo was that our former stepdad wasn't there, as he would have grabbed hold of his foot and wiggled it around his ankle and broken foot, and told him to stop being so ruddy soft and just get on with it. And this did happen to my youngest sister when she broke her arm roller skating. Roller boots in those days in the 1980s. And I refelt this memory as I've lived most of my life with guilt about what happened that day. For the way I remembered it was that I was actually the one that told her to stop being soft and wiggled her arm around her elbow. Oh, there's no wrong with you, that kind of thing. And a few years ago, I remembered apologising to her for that stupid act as I saw it. And she looked at me in utter bewilderment, like I was a complete and utter idiot. In fact, she told me so. She used stronger language, if I'm honest. She told me, looked me in the face, said, that is not what happened at all. That actually, when she broke her elbow, that I cared for her, and her dad came home, and actually it was he that did this, and I just witnessed it. I was just in the room when it happened. That what I remembered wasn't true. That I was not responsible. I just witnessed what happened. But I still struggle to accept that that is the reality. My mind doesn't want to remember it that way. I cannot find the whole truth of that in my memory. And that tells me something about the state of my mind and my memory at that time in my life. But it also teaches me something about how memory can so easily get lost, and that the truth sometimes can be hard to find what's really happening when you're caught up in times of emotion, in times of loss, in times of trauma. Can we trust our interactions and what we actually witness and see? This proves to me that mine's certainly questionable, and I don't think I'm alone. We're all far more human than otherwise. And I think this is vital that we hold fast to this in the times that we live through at the moment. so we don't separate ourselves. We're all far more human than otherwise. It's also vital to hold on to the truth of the beautiful memories of our lives, of moments of deep care, of deep love, of deep attention too, of what is good and loving and beautiful, of every tiny bit of humanity that we experience in our daily lives. Of course, I think our world depends upon that we don't lose that. And I've been thinking a lot about these things in the last couple of weeks as I celebrated an important anniversary in my own life. I have been remembering so many people that offered so much love, so much acceptance in my darker days. In those days when I was as lost as I have ever been. But I found a better way. I found a better way. And you know what? Sometimes being lost is not as terrible as we might think it is, for it leads us to find a better way. I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive, but being lost and feeling lost is not always such a terrible thing, especially if it leads us to find a better way. We don't go back, we find a better way to go forward. And I'm reminded here of a mysterious little poem by William Stafford. What a great guy he was. The poem is Cutting Loose. I'll share it with you. So Cutting Loose by William Stafford. Sometimes from sorrow, for no reason, you sing. For no reason, you accept the way of being lost, cutting loose from all else and electing a world where you go where you want to. Arbitrary, a sound comes, a reminder that a steady centre is holding all else. If you listen, that sound will tell you where it is, and you can slide your way past trouble. Certain twisted monsters always bar the path, but that's when you get going best, glad to be lost, learning how real it is here on earth, again and again. And I love the way that Parker J. Palmer highlighted this poem, highlights certain things in this poem as he reflected on this mysterious poem. Wonderful poem. Palmer said that maybe the way of being lost is important, perhaps even necessary at times, if we are to cut loose from business as usual and reach beyond for a far better world. Perhaps what is key is that vital reminder that a steady centre is holding all else. And if you know where it is, you can slide your way past trouble. And it's just as vital to remember that the twisted monsters that always bar our path need not defeat us, but can prod us to get going amid the complex mix of horror and beauty of which reality is made as we get going. Our acceptance of being lost can turn to gratitude for being lost, because if we didn't feel lost, then we wouldn't look for a better way. How vital it is to remember that even when we feel lost, that it's not all is necessarily lost. We just need to find a better way. And I believe we're always going to be able to do that. We need to find a better way. But you can't do it on your own. You've got to find a better way. I was smiling the other day because I was chatting with some friends about being lost and being found, and that there is something deeply reassuring that lost and found are paired together, like the concept of the lost property box, which is often referred to as the lost and found, isn't it? Because we all are. There's something very powerful in the journey of faith, I think, in these words. There is something beautifully paradoxical in it all. It reminds me that if you want to be found, you first of all got to get lost. You know, that's the classic journey of journeys, the hero's journey, isn't it? You've got to get lost first, and then find a better way, a new way, or a better way than the way you've been going, the way we've all been going, because we've been lost many times before, but we find a better way. If I've learned anything in life, it's that the problem isn't whether or not we will get lost at times. The question is, how will we live when we get lost? The first steps, of course, to finding my way again is to recognise, first of all, be able to see that you are lost. And that doesn't mean necessarily you're literally, physically lost. You can be lost in yourself, whether that's lost in fear or self-doubt or self-pity, the worst kind of being lost, I think. Lost in your own underpants, not a pleasant place to be. When I am lost in myself and feel all lost at sea, I find that what is really happening, and I think that this is the great danger, is that I've separated myself once again from what I know to be true, about what is at the heart of me and the heart of life, and I've blinded myself from the light both within and the light without. And I have once again walled myself in, and it's this that makes me feel so alone and completely lost. How we separate ourselves. That I've cut myself off from others and the love that is present in life. And in such a state, you know, I can really hurt myself, for I've done so in the past, even if it's just with my own mind. I know when I am lost, when I'm lost internally within myself, I guess, I feel guilt just takes over. And I feel utterly alone. And I feel completely defenseless, and vulnerable. And in that state, of course, I will then look out and blame others, find the scapegoats. Blame others for this sense of feeling lost and lonely. Resentment and confusion grows. And we start to see the other as being not like us. They're not like us. I'm not like them. When we're all born from the same thing. We're all far more human than otherwise. Don't we all feel that way at times? That kind of proves it, actually, that we all feel like that. It's a human experience. And when I feel like that, the solution might not be to go back where I came from. The solution might be to find a better way, a new hope, a fresh hope. Respect, if you remember me talking about that once. Well, more than once, probably. But the truth is, we all feel lost at times. And I've relearnt again, how important that is, that we all feel like this at times. It's a human thing. It keeps you connected, you know. It allows you to grow. It allows for transformation. You've got to get lost first. Go and get lost. And transformation, of course, is the point of the spiritual life. And I've relearnt that once more. And I've also relearnt how vital it is to feel vulnerable, because it's what unites us in so many ways. For we're all vulnerable to the troubles of life. No one is immune. No one. No matter how comfortable life might feel or be in this moment, that can be quickly shaken, and all can feel lost in another moment. I bet many of us have felt like that this last 12 months or so. There may be that unexpected knock at the door, or that phone call that comes on a cold blue autumn day with the worst news you could imagine. That news you don't want to hear. It can just come. You can't prepare yourself for it. You can just take care of what needs to be taken care of, so that when that comes, it doesn't sink the ship, break the foundations, leave us lost and alone. but that might lead to a better way. For the problem isn't getting lost, for we all get lost at times. The problem is in losing faith that we can be found once again, or we can find a better way. The key is how we live when we find ourselves lost. Do we close down and get lost deeper and deeper in our fear? Or do we pause and reach out and ask for help from those loving forces in and all around us, both visible and invisible? Do we look for a better way? Do we look for a better way? And I'm going to end now, because I've gone on quite a long time. I know, I'm sorry about that. I'm going to end with another little poem. And it's from my favourite farmer poet, Wendell Berry. It's his Sabbath poem 2. So this is Sabbath poem 2 by Wendell Berry. What a great name, eh? The best reward in going to the woods is being lost to other people, and lost sometimes to myself. I'm at the end of no bespeaking wire to spoil my goods. I send no letter back I do not bring. Whoever wants me now must hunt me down like something wild, and wild is anything beyond the reach of purpose not its own. Wild is anything that's not at home in something else's place. This good white oak is not an orchard tree. It's unbespoke, and it can live here by its will alone. Lost to all other wills but heaven's wild. So where I most am found, I'm lost to you, presuming friend, and only can be called or answered by a certain one or two. Amen. So I'm going to end this devotion with just a few words of blessing. You know, we need to bless more, and we can all bless. And we bless by giving our whole hearts to life. So let's begin right now by giving our whole hearts to life. Let's find a better way. May the Eternal bless you and protect you. May the Eternal smile on you and favour you. May the Eternal befriend and prosper you. And may we carry the song and sing the song of the Eternal. And may we do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, and in all that we do.